Wheatley, and welcome to episode 229 of the Wheatley podcast. Thank you very much for joining us from wherever you are doing so. I'll get into the visuals in a second. Thank you very much to Brad Osborne for coming on last week to talk about music theory, his own work, Radiohead, which he's very much a specialist in now. It was really interesting to talk to him. I'd heard him a couple of times on podcasts talk about music in general, and I thought he was fascinating. So it was really good to actually get him on this podcast. Our link to buy me a coffee is in the description. Thank you very much to the people who bought me coffees this week. I'm really always very touched and very grateful for that. Because I don't drink coffee, but I certainly drink tea, and I do like a cup of tea. I do have a music channel. I think I mentioned it last week. A new music channel on YouTube, Derek Wheatley Music. If you go over to that and subscribe, it'd be really great. I'm just starting to put out some of my own material there, kind of first drafts of them before I really work them into something that I, want or at least have in mind for them to sound like. And I'll get a bit more into it during this episode to describe. If you're not just listening to this, if you're watching it, you will notice this dramatic lighting over my head. It isn't a scene out of Close Encounters. It's just I'm in the office in work and the gym there because my internet has yet to be connected in my new place. It will be connected in a couple of days, and that'll be sorted, and I can get back to the usual. But this is the best option because the gym's closed on a Sunday. It's quiet. I doubt we'll have any interruptions in any way, but you will have to put up with the increasingly worrying amount of frown lines on my forehead. But my hair looks, I don't actually know what my hair looks. It just looks lit up, I suppose. It looks as grey as it usually does, maybe even greyer. But there you go. This is what we have to work with today. And look, hopefully it'll be fine. So you may have noticed in the title, this is called Changes. So I wanted to do an episode with a guest this week, but it was a little bit worried. I don't know how good the internet is here. So I didn't want to risk it having a guest on and then it going all glitchy and things like that. And I was trying to think of what I could kind of talk about. And, the last solo episode, I was talking about the move and how that had kind of interrupted certain things. And so I decided on something like this, changes, because we all have to do changes in our lives in general, and it can be worrying and stressful and all those things. But I wanted to kind of talk a bit about first, when I did that episode a couple of weeks ago, people seem to be worried about me, and which is lovely. I'm definitely not having a go at the people who, and it's not aimed at anyone particular, by the way. This is just me. This is as always just me talking in a room. And when I talk about things that are stressful and worrying on the podcast, I'm being truthful that they are worrying and stressful, but not to the point that I'm going to feel that I'm going to go backwards in regards to my mental health, or I'm going to have any sort of breakdown or anything like that. And also, I am comfortable enough in myself now, and comfortable enough. Sorry, I'm after messing with the camera. It's probably for the best that I mess with the camera, so I don't look at myself. But it's just me in a room talking, right? And I'm back. If I feel that I need help at any point, I'm definitely comfortable enough with myself and with the people around me. I'm kind of what cliche of a support system, but that's what it is. To definitely talk to them about it directly and not try to be as subtle as a sledgehammer on a podcast talking about it. So everybody can lay their mind to rest about that episode and about this episode, because this will be talking about changes, and which aren't particularly my favorite thing in life, but no matter how large or minute the change might be. So that's just letting you know, don't worry. But thank you for being concerned. So the idea of changes was a funny one. So there's a Black Sabbath song from I think it's 1972. It's early 70s, called Changes, and it's kind of very different to them, to their usual sound. You know, they were kind of one of the pioneers, if not the pioneer, um, of metal music. And when they wrote and recorded and released Changes, it's something very different, and it being a massive change in them, and the song being more about what sounds to be like a relationship, or it's something that's kind of a loving, relationship between a couple, or whether it's a relationship between a friend or family member, or whatever it might be. And that I happen to have that on rotation there the last couple of weeks. That song, it popped up in something, and I know Ozzy Osbourne did a duet with his daughter Kelly on it, and that I was probably more familiar with that, sadly, because I'm not a huge Black Sabbath fan. I have their first album, and it's great, but after that, not a massive follower of them. But so this song was on heavy rotation, and as these things seem to come about, I started reading a book about David Bowie called Why Bowie Matters. And it's a guy who's a huge Bowie fan, but he's also professor himself, and he did a whole thing of like living Bowie's life in a year, and going through the phases that Bowie went. And there's no one more changeable than David Bowie, I would say, in popular music ever. Um, so these two things kind of came about, and obviously bringing up David Bowie, the song "Changes." If you've watched is that in Shrek? I don't know. Even if it's not, it probably should be, but it's it's an amazing song, and while not like about a relationship as such, but could be applied to a relationship, could be applied to anything. Turn the face of strain changes. It's the idea of uh, kind of going at the changes in a positive way. I think that's the way I read it. I could be way off from what Bowie says, um, what Bowie was writing about at the time, but it's like kind of going head on, into the changes and embracing them, which is, again, to me, is like freaks me out a little bit. Um, so the changes of late that I was having, um, there were, a lot of stuff, and the way I was kind of being, kind of, I suppose I was trying to trick my brain into thinking that I could take one of them on at a time. And everybody kept saying that, like, one day at a time or one step at a time. And that's a really good way of putting it. But I can't get into that mindset at all. So I think I mentioned, if I have a pile of stuff on the ground, it's very hard for me not to finish putting the pile away. Like, even if it takes 3 hours and I don't have 3 hours to spare, or whatever it might be, I need to do it at that moment, and I can't do it bit by bit, because then the mess is there, and that goes into OCD. But it still applies to the fact that, like, how can you change your behavior, even if it is slightly destructive. I wouldn't say it's overly destructive, that kind of thing. Um, there's other aspects of my mindset that are quite destructive to certain things, but not. I wouldn't say that is. But so I was trying to do the whole thing in the last couple of weeks of yeah, do things one step or one day at a time, and that's not me. And look, I had some great help from friends and family and stuff, so I'm very lucky in that sense, that I'm being helped by it. And look, this thing, I think, helps as well, because, like, when you speak out about it, if you are having a tough time mentally or physically, or whatever, if you're having a tough time in a relationship with that, I think if you do speak out about it, people tend to kind of gravitate towards you, because they want to help. They're natural empaths, and they want to help with the situation that you're having. And that's, I hope I'm like that. But it's a beautiful way to be, if you can, as long as you can shoulder that kind of extra burden in your life. I think it's a really great way to be. Um, I don't want to. I hope this chair doesn't squeak too much. It's nearly as bad as the one I sit on in the house. Um, so it's like, that's one thing, the big changes that I was thinking about, and kind of going through. But, like, everything is changing minutely, like, because for everyone, obviously, I'm talking about this generally. So, for instance, I went out for a run this morning, and it's a new route for me because obviously I'm in a different place, and went up Balamunya there, and it's got like I can never say that word, so don't worry about it. We'll never mention it, but we go so there's hills and ups and downs, and it's kind of a different terrain for the ankles, and everything's kind of feeling a little. And I about like a kilometer from the house, I felt something in my calf. Now, it's nothing that big, but it was just that little tweak. And then I thought, well, that's 3 weeks of no running. You just know because the delicacy of a calf in general, because yeah, you really have to rest the calf. Like you think it's fine, and then you maybe rest for a week longer, and then still you go out and go again, and it goes. So like that changes something. That changes my Sunday morning routine for sure. Now I can't run. I can come down to the gym now, which is great. But that's all like the OCD and the kind of constant need to know what is going on the following day, and what I might have to get through. I wonder, is it like the OCD thing is it's definitely part of the OCD um thing, but it's is it also like that I have to mentally prepare myself for what's coming the next day? Um, Not so much with workouts and stuff, because if you go to the gym, you're going to the gym. It's this part of it. So I don't really worry about the workout side of it. But like, it's different when you're talking about like I have to take a couple of classes. What are the movements I have to teach in classes? I have to know in my head like what I'm teaching the following day, and I have to know the warm up, the mobility, the mobility part, the the skill part, the work. I have to know everything in my head, and I'll check that like 5 times in an evening, or I'll um even it's even nice for me. It doesn't like it's not going to matter. I can't change anything, but it's even nice for me to know who's going to be in my class. Like, and that's not a thing that like is going to. It's not going to change my approach to the class. I just like to know who's going to be in the class. So I'll always like I'll kind of keep myself up to date and updated on how many are going to be in, who's going to be in, and will anybody need a training bar? Will there's all these kind of things which I'd love to be able to wing it, and it wouldn't make me any of a less of a coach, I don't think, but I do think that the way I prepare, possibly, there's some people might argue this, makes me probably a better coach. Well, I suppose they've nothing to compare me with I've always been like this, so I've never not prepared. But that preparation, so those kind of anything that's thrown, a spanner in the works there. Even if someone arrives late, to me that's thrown a spanner in the works. So I have to readjust, and I have to make sure I don't give out to the person too much. I've probably done that before. I'm pretty sure I have, but not like over the top, but just maybe anyway. Let's not go into that. Um, yeah, so it's like the change of so I had sorry, I'm just opening a bottle here. I'll take us up. So I had the internet thing. So it's Sunday now. I'm recording this, by the way, and so since last Monday, I've had no internet in the apartment, and it's coming this Tuesday, so it'll be sorted for me then. But it's really interesting, and not so much in the sense of oh God, isn't it crazy how much we use the internet? Well, we know how much I know how much you use the internet. Like it's a fair bit. Um, but it's just the weird thing, and the almost the pampered way in which I use the internet and consume things online, because you have your phone and you can use the hotspot and you can put it onto your iPad, but it's crap. Like I was trying to watch some of the European Championship games, and it's quite pixelated, and it's stopping, pausing, and the sound will go and the video will be on, and the video will go and the sound will be on. And so to me, that's very frustrating. But again, it's just a pampered kind of what we're so used to having, like perfect HD on our TVs, and you get frustrated otherwise. And I was on the bath test. I had the iPad propped up, but I was living the life. But yesterday evening it started to go, and I just knocked it off because you want to watch the match, but then you don't want to be annoyed going to bed because you didn't really watch the match. Um, so I was just kind of checking the scores and that. But I like reading as well. But when something's taken away out of your hands, and something that you use quite often, it's it's a weird thing, like because it becomes in your head like an advent calendar that you're counting down the days until this magic man appears with his uh you know his means of opening the internet back up to you. Because it was very like stressful me on the phone to people, but they were like, "We'll send out this pack and don't plug it in, but wait till the man comes out." And I was like, "Look, I'll just leave everything alone and wait till the man comes out." But that was the earliest they could do was 8 days, and I was like, "Oh God, that's a long time." But what can you do when someone's being really nice to you on the phone? You're not going to be like, "No, I prefer if you go quicker than that," you know. Um, yeah, because I really need it, for my bath time or something. It's just, it's so ridiculous. But yeah, so that was like it had to be done because there was I'm not going to go into too much details about it, but basically I had to wait till my landlord's internet went out, so it was planned to go out on the 16th or whatever it was, and then before I could ring up and sort out mine, and then it's like the wait for the man to come out and all that, and I have the TV waiting to go as well, and that's connected to the internet, so there's no TV. Um, so there's like nothing in the apartment, just my phone and my iPad, but even my iPad's kind of giving me a bit of trouble, so I'm kind of just on my phone watching videos of whatever on YouTube. It's just yeah, so I'm sitting there trying to trying to realize how privileged I actually am, and not to be given out about just having an iPhone. You know what I mean? Um, but it's easy to slip into that kind of stuff, anyways, isn't it? Um, and then so I had like another change I had. So I'd missed my driving lessons for 3 or 4 weeks, I think, because of the move, and I hadn't been in contact with Paul just because I was a bit stressed out and I had a lot going on. So we got in there last Thursday, and I had a really like Paul at the end was saying, no, it wasn't all bad, but I felt like I had a bit of a shocker, and because Paul is the one who's with me on the drive, I feel I've let Paul down. So then I'm like beat myself up over the fact that I'm on my eighth lesson now and I'm still making the same mistakes as I was, at the start. Now we went into town and it was a very wet morning, and it was 9:15, and it was really busy, and it was my fault because I had to change the time and the date. So it would have been the day before too. I would have got, but it was very busy, with the rain and people going to work and stuff. So a lot of start, stop, clutch, brake, and I didn't do very well. And I just every time he told me to do something, I did it for about 5 minutes and I stopped. But while I was doing that for 5 minutes, I was making a mistake on something else. And it did frustrate me, and I was a bit low after it. Now Paul said he's going to sort out with his own car, and then honestly I don't know what's going on with the video. I'm not even touching the wire, and it's saying it's coming out. But his own car, it's an automatic, and he said like maybe it'd be better because can't seem to concentrate, and I can't. I'll be honest. Like Paul said, this doesn't seem to be something. At the start, I said to him, "This isn't something I really want to do. It's something I feel I need to do rather than want." And he was like, "Look, if this is a musical instrument or something, you'd be all over it, but this just isn't a priority for you. So if we get into the automatic car, like the concentration levels, you won't have to concentrate on as much." And I think I concentrate quite well on the actual road, like, the people around me. But that I do lose concentration with regards to looking in the mirror before indicating. That seems to be just a thing that's just I can't get through my thick head. And changing the gears a little bit on the way back down, and that obviously that'll be taken out, so it'll give me that little bit more time to or time and space to concentrate a bit more and to be more like I've been on a bike for years and years, and I need to be. I'm not checking for bikes in my wing mirrors. I've been hit by a car because they were looking and through the wing mirrors at a bike rather than looking ahead at the bike that was kind of coming out in front of them. So all of this stuff was kind of difficult for me. Yeah, I had to kind of take it on board, and I do like it wasn't all bad. I understand that, but then I don't know. There's a certain amount of there's always a certain level of me that'll take it a bit too far with regards to criticism of myself. And and what changes, like there's another unavoidable thing is with bipolar. The the uh, the very nature of it is very changeable, and um I had a low there a couple of weeks ago, and I was asked by someone, was it a bipolar low? And I was like, well, yeah, I think so. And you're almost like, no, I'm not ashamed, by the way, of any of this bipolar thing. It's not anything to do with that. But you kind of sometimes don't want to go into it. It's just kind of go, I'm feeling a bit low, because then if you're just feeling a bit low, I think it's less of a talking point, because we all feel low from time to time. But if people think you're feeling low because of your bipolar, they might think that you're going to go lower still, and they want to try and help, and that's a really nice thing. But again, like I said, this it's the whole thing of, I'm sure that if it came to it, I would approach who I needed to approach, to kind of rectify it or get back out with the low, and switch things up a bit. So, like, all in all, it's like a kind of sense of all these dramatic and big and minute and medium-sized lows, or changes, sorry, are a difficult thing for me to kind of line up, because I want to line them all up and in an order, as is my nature. So all of the stuff that's messing with my OCD, I want to line that up in an OCD type way, but it's too hard to catch. It's like a fly in a kitchen, it's everything's kind of moving so fast that, no matter how many times you try to spot it or whatever, you're the one that kind of ends up looking like a fool, I suppose. Well, in your mind anyway, obviously. But it is quite difficult when anxiety and OCD and those, uh, just like a person who doesn't have those issues would just put it down to just the way life is and move on to the next thing. But the hang up of these things is far larger than they should be, in my mind. And maybe other people can relate to it, even if they've not been diagnosed with bipolar. Maybe they can relate to it in a human way, um, of that's how things work, and we just gotta battle through it and move on to the next thing and wait for the next thing to change. But who knows? I don't know. Just trying to what that's what I mean about just me talking in a room. That's all this is. Um, so you do get a little bit lost in the changes. So what was happening with the changes were so frequent in the last few weeks. They were quite frequent, and I couldn't quite line them up because it was just all in the air. So I was getting a bit lost in the fact, that these changes were happening, and I missed the concert. I was supposed to go see the Smashing Pumpkins, and with my friend Joanne and some of her cousins, and I couldn't go, and there was just too much in my head, and logistically, it just seemed like a nightmare, even though it wasn't. It, you know, it was a trip to Dublin and then go to the Three Arena. That was it. I could have just stayed in my mom's house and come back the next day, but I felt that the anxiety within me was building these, stumbling blocks for it, and it didn't want me to go, because it felt, well, I'm putting a voice to my anxiety now, which but some people would actually suggest that you should do anyway, so I'm gonna just go with it. But I felt that the anxiety was just, knew that a lot of it was going to be just too tiring and too hard work, so it was pushing against me. um I know Joanna's recently been posting about Inside Out 2, the animated film, and there's anxiety is in the film, and she has the stuffed toy, um of anxiety. And yeah, so like, and I think there's a scene in it I heard about, they're talking about on a podcast, of the anxiety pushing everything else out of the room, or causing, creating the chaos that it does. But it does push everything out of the room. It dominates everything within you, both mentally and physically. But this kind of things about the Smashing Pumpkins concert was, um it seemed expendable, in I don't mean that in a bad way towards the band, obviously. I wasn't always in love with the band. Now I wondered if it had been, say, Radiohead, would I have went, and I probably would have. but I felt that maybe it was just a battle too much, and then I needed to, knock something on the head, and I couldn't knock on the head the fact that I was moving stuff and sorting out internet and TV and gas and electricity and all that stuff. That was the things that I should have been focused on and was focused on. So I didn't want it to be a thing that pushed me over the edge with regards to just maybe exhaustion, and because you do run out of steam, and for the people who don't experience anxiety, that I saw a question on something it was, I can't remember now, but there was a question up on, it could have been Facebook, but it was about like if you wanted someone to know about one thing about anxiety, you wanted them to know, um and it would be me, it would be just the pure exhaustion of it all, how it makes you so tired. And um a lot of people, like myself, for instance, um coincidentally, consider I am telling this this tale, but they'll go through the stuff that they really need to go through, and for me it's like exercise and making sure the house is sorted, and everything is in its right place, as Tom York once said. So to me, that's all important, is to have everything, all my ducks in a row, um, get my workout in, and then get back. And if I'm exhausted, whether it's physically, it's a largely anxiety driven, I would say, the exhaustion, but the physicality of the stuff I do in the gym, is another part of it. And I would say that if anybody wanted to know what for me anyway, for what's the main struggle with anxiety is, it's just the sheer exhaustion of it all. And I have gotten a yell yesterday. I think I was just so tired. I was like falling asleep everywhere. I was couldn't. I was like, I thought I was going to burn. I had pizza. Thought I was going to burn it because I fell asleep and woke up, and I was like, oh shit. And I forgot the time, put it on, and I had a film on the background. I'm going to have to watch that again because I definitely fell asleep for far too long of it to even remember what it was about. So there is that, and so I put down a joke here on the page. I'm not going to read it because it's terrible. But yes, it's again, I suppose this is not about anybody contacting me and saying, "Are you all right?" Um, is this a cry for help? It's not a cry for help. It's a cry. Um, but yeah, the I'd never really focused on the subject of change as a exhausting topic or issue, or that it can affect people's mental health quite dramatically, if they have this kind of space around them that they've decided is their comfort zone, and everything is in the place it should be because that's what makes them feel comfortable. And then you rip the kind of, whip the carpet out from underneath them, and they have to, you know uh, redistribute it to different parts of the country, and all of a sudden they're in a new space, and it's like they're starting again you know um at a certain age, and like 42 for me. But I know it's remarkable, especially in this lighting. Actually, if I hold my head up this high, I can't see the frown lines, but then when you come down here, you can see them. Not that I really care about frown lines, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, it's just, again, I don't want anybody to come back and say, look, you don't really have frown lines. That's not what it's about. So, reading about the idea of what someone like David Bowie, and there's many, artists or whatever, but um the to what seemed the opposite to someone like him, as a kind of, obviously as an artist and a performer, but this kind of chameleon character, is that he kind of thrived on the change, like ripping everything up and starting again, which he literally did in Ziggy Stardust when he was doing the tour, and he just said, "We're never going to play again," without telling the band. He said it live on stage, and he inhabited so many different characters and different roles, and you'll know all the images of Bowie, but even the songwriting and the way he structured songs changed as he changed, and the sounds and everything, and then through the decades he always kept up with what was going. And that to me is fascinating, because I wonder how all those things took what they took out of him, and how much it took out of him, because none of that is easy, that like like for me changing a dress, but for him is like changing a character, almost coming and becoming an alter ego, of himself again and again and again, where you kind of wonder where the real Bowie begins, and where the real Bowie ends, or the fake Bowie ends, or whatever. But this constant need for him to kind of invent stuff within the press, and so he was never really like David Jones again. I find that fascinating, like to lose everything, lose everything that you're stable with, and tear up the rule book and just kind of go, well, this is who I am now, Aladdin Sane or whoever he was, the Tin White Duke and all those characters that he played. But changes were so important to him, and like singing the song changes in the early 70s. Like, I wonder, was he already planning on doing what he's doing, like changing himself over and over again, turn and face the strain changes. I love the idea of that, and that's why it's so interesting to me. Um, but like, there's another thing I was thinking of, like why people would make dramatic changes on purpose and to kind of invite it in their lives. Now, like I said, the someone listening to this might be like David Bowie, and they just like change all the time to kind of keep themselves and keep other people on their toes, and that's great. But the dramatic changes like that I was thinking, what would make you do it would be like, if your stale life, it was boring and everything was the same, and you were like listen to Once in a Lifetime by Talking Heads. That's what it's about, everything in the same place, and you want to change it up, but because everything's so stale. But it's not easy, obviously. Um, you might be low, you might be in a slump. Or I suppose that is kind of like a low, yeah. You feel like in this job I'm 29 years of age, and I didn't think I'd be still working here at 29, that kind of thing. You get just kind of a midlife crisis, and that happens. And also like money issues as well. You got to change for monetary reasons, and not always for the best. A lot of the times you have to downgrade certain things. Maybe it's your car, maybe it's your house, um, and you just have to downgrade everything, and like learn to kind of embrace that kind of change, and that's tough. And I think if you can't get on top of that one, then it becomes like, then it could become a kind of issue. Like, it's like me giving up alcohol that time, and only now kind of knowing that, there was a certain crutch like thing to the alcohol. It was keeping my head together for me until it kind of fell apart. But that was me having to give up alcohol, But even and knowing that alcohol was destructive to my system, and everything else. Uh, so those kind of things might be the reason you would change everything up. Um, but I think they would be kind of reasons approached that if you were in a good place. Um, even for me, in the summer we always have like stuff here, like to be a staff get together, maybe, or a whole crew get together, and I just don't want to go. It's not, it sounds terrible, but it's not. Obviously, the people know it's nothing to do with them. But again, it's just about logistics. I don't like, tell me where we're going. Tell me what we're doing exactly. Tell me when we'll be back exactly. Um, is the bus going to leave at the time we say it's going to leave? All this kind of stuff is important to me. And people probably think that sounds like a bit of a control freak thing. I don't think it. I think it is that. Obviously, I think it's more to do with trying to settle my nerves and having an itinerary. So like, even good, just going somewhere because I've written down hating the thoughts of even going somewhere for a day, but annoyed that you can't. It's like a double negative. Um, because all of it is so exhausting, but at the same time you feel, oh God, I have to do something. Because people in here will ask you, like, especially in the summer now, "Are there any holidays planned?" Or if I say it to them, they'll say it back to me, and it's like, not really, no. I'm just okay. I'm all right doing what I'm doing. Um, I didn't write anything down about the music thing, but that's kind of, I haven't even kind of got that off the ground yet. Like, I've set up the channel and I've put up a couple of songs and that, but I've got to like make that space in my calendar, and it's kind of just it's just not going in at the moment. I'm like, do you have to do it tomorrow, and then tomorrow comes and you're, "Ah, we'll have to do this instead," and then it's getting put off and put off instead of just going in and embracing it because I was really excited about it and I want to get that excitement back, but I won't get that excitement back unless I go in and actually do it. And it's the same as like when I was writing short stories. That to me, if you get the excitement on the first draft, because I was write it out by hand and then I have to type it, so it's two drafts really. And if you can get that excitement going in the first one and get straight into it on the computer, the excitement will stay. But if you don't, you know, it becomes an effort. And that's the same with the music. I have to just jump in and I've got the stuff ready to go. Like material, 50% of the material and most of the equipment. Maybe I have to buy some software for recording or something, but that's about it. But again, I just had to find those places where I'm not using the time wisely and get get it going. Um, but we're all done that. Like, that's just procrastination. And what's easier to do? Sit down and watch a football match or try to write an epic? Sorry. Oh my God. This is so rude. I'm making myself tired on my own podcast, but sorry about that. Yeah, like I said, I went running this morning and it just wipes me. Um, I decided to record this at 2 o'clock, which is dangerous territory for me. I'm always get really tired around this one. I think it's the magic medication. It could be just the food though. I just had my dinner. Um, but I think look again, like going back to the Bowie thing and even Black Sabbath singing about it, like art is represented the best in sorry, change is represented the best in art. So, whether they're painters or musicians or writers, that they will they seem to be the ones that can change faster or are more comfortable with change. Whether it's changing their location or their style or their techniques or songwriting skills and stuff, you will see like if you go through the episodes where I talk about music, I talk about a lot of artists like Bowie and Radiohead and U2 and not so much Raymond Carver, I suppose, but a lot of these artists that I greatly admire, the Beatles obviously as well being a prime example, have changed, you know. And I understand. Like I just wanted to get the point across of change in general. It's different. It's not a diff. It's a different thing than what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the change of um to me, I mean, what's happened to me is about location and timing and stuff, whereas the artists are talking more about techniques and, soundscapes and songwriting techniques, or songwriting. But it's still all relevant that like some people can make change look very, very easy, and some people make it look very, very difficult. And I think I'm in that second category. Um, like I'm doing a lot better than I thought I was with this whole move and and how it happened, and it wasn't particularly my choice to be living out, but I do think I'm doing better than I thought I would. And I wonder, like, do people who really, really know me think the same thing, or do they see like something else? Maybe they wonder why I did two podcasts about the move in the space of 3 weeks. Maybe they see that as not as particularly good, but I don't think either of these podcasts are particularly negative, by the way. This one and the one that I called on the move, I don't think they're completely negative. I know a couple of people tuned in hoping for a bigger rant on the move one, but they didn't get a huge rant. And I started to let people down that way. Listen, there's always a rant around the corner, all right? Don't you worry about that. Um, so the question is, I suppose the question that I really started thinking about when I was writing this, like, was have I changed enough for this year? Um, should this be should I see this kind of year out the way it is now, being used to living on my own and do change location with the podcast and trying to get the music done and all that, or do I continue to try and change while I'm in the form, while I'm in that kind of run? Uh, because I wonder, The way that I think about my own mind or about my own mental health is that if I push too far, that it'll go at any point. And I guess most people will think that way about their mental health or their health in general. So I worry if I push that a bit too far, like, maybe going to the Smashing Pumpkins that night, and that I know it's only a concert, and everybody else probably thinking, sure, it's only up the road, and wherever. But if I push too far with bringing on these kind of emotional upheavals and changes, will that kind of push me over the brink, or can I keep going and maybe change a bit more while I'm in the form or in the flow of it, whatever you want to say? So I wonder about that. And I'll tell you one thing, the seat is so comfortable. My back is broke. Because I can't sit back, because if I sit back, I'm all the way out here, look. I just disappear off into the ether. Actually, it's very comfortable like this. It's not so comfortable sitting up like this. Maybe I should have set it up like this. Actually, no, it's terrible. It looks so, it's about as disrespectful as me, well, me yawning into the microphone. Um, so I don't know. I don't know. It's a one I have to juggle with, about whether I have I changed enough for this year. Do I need any more problems on the horizon? Potential problems. I shouldn't say problems, because then it's immediately putting it being a negative. Well, I suppose it's potential problems is much better, but it's a little better. But I I always see things a bit more pessimistically than some people. And that's just my way. And speaking of change, I don't know if I'll be able to change that. So I wonder about like that burnout, or how to counteract the burnout if the burnout is starting to come on. I don't know. Burnout is like, I've hit it a couple of times, I think, and that's tough, because that's a affects the body like as well as the mind. And I don't mean just it's your whole system is in shock almost, that you can start picking up injuries, or feeling ill, headaches and nausea, and all of those things, and that's obviously not something that anybody wants to do, and I certainly don't want to do it with the training that I do, which is for mental health reasons more than anything else, and I'm not willing to change that. So it's like it's trying to counteract it, or cut it off before it even happens, is the kind of daunting thing about it. But it's interesting how listening to a song or reading a book about an artist can lead you down a kind of an existential path, um, uh, flittered with landmines. Um, because if you kind of can, I'm talking to the listener now. If you have many changes, maybe you don't have suffer from anxiety, whatever. Show off. And, so you have a lot of changes on the horizon, or you've just gone through a lot of changes, and it'd be I don't know how your body and mind reacts to it. Like, it'd be interesting to know, if it's a similar experience, only mine is maybe multiplied a little bit, um, or it's like a rejuvenating experience for you, which it might be. And if that is the case, like, that could be like the Bowie thing. Maybe it's rejuvenating in both character and form, and mental health and everything, like how on an uptake. Maybe you can't sit still. Maybe you need to make those changes all the time. Um, because I get approached by people within my circle. Oh, maybe you want to do this on Saturday week, or maybe you'd want to come to such and such. And it's kind of like my immediate reaction is no. Or my thought process, it's not even a process. It I just go no straight off, right? And then I try to work back from the no, but the no is so strong, like, because it's such an easy way to end the discussion and the thought process of having to think, oh God, what's all this going to entail? So the no is beautiful, like cutting it off. So I do have to probably get better at that. Um, uh, uh, get, even if you've just opened yourself up to a yes and a no. But that's probably going to take a long time. That's like retraining your brain. If you're one of those people who's like yes all the time, and just jump in head first and all that kind of stuff. Imagine you then had to do what I do and say no to everything and um, self protect and let people down all the time. You'd be pretty probably bummed out, and it would very soon change your mood. Um, but yeah, that's the kind of what I wanted to talk about really about changes. Um, I was also sitting in the apartment one of the days before the internet left, and that baby reindeer came popped up on Netflix, and I was like, I might just watch this, like because it was short episodes, and quite a hard watch, obviously quite severe in spots, and there has to be skepticism as to whether it's all true from the horse's mouth, as it were. It's not, you're not getting the woman's opinion. You're just getting the man's, the guy who wrote it and created it and who was paid money by Netflix to, make it. So you do have to take some of it with a pinch of salt. But, some of the stuff that happened to him was horrible. And I don't think anybody came out of it well. Um, but it was I suppose, just an interesting kind of to look at the psychology of it all. Was it? Was it interesting? I don't really know if it was actually. I don't know. I have a lot of, before I was behind everybody, but everybody had seen it until before I saw it. But there was the fact that she had to go on to defend herself. And, I think it's exploitation of someone who has mental health problems. And she went on and then everybody laughed at her for going on. And I just think it's that side of it is a bit rotten because I know he didn't name her and people found out, but of course we're going to find out. It's not like, you're not talking about looking for someone in LA when you're in New York. The people are going to know who was following her. Sorry, who was following him, and then they would find out who she was. But I just thought the whole thing was a bit um, handled a bit poorly by Netflix, maybe. I know it's a mad story and they want to sell mad stories, but they have a responsibility to people, do you not? Would you not? And they're a big company, probably not. Probably don't give a shit. But it was the first time I watched a TV series in about 4 years. Because I don't tend to watch them that much. But see, changes. Um, but yeah, they were in kind of that was interesting that they were in like 25, 30 minute episodes. That were all the TV shows now like 45 an hour, and I wanted kind of bite-sized chunks so I could watch one and then go to work, or watch one and before I go to bed, that kind of thing. Um, so I watched it anyways after all of it, and like I would say it was pretty wasn't great. Um, but everybody made money and everybody had a good time. So yeah, like to kind of sum it all up, I suppose about the changes is I understand that we'll all go through it. I understand that I'm not the only one. But for me anyway, I think like it's important to address certain things like that with regards to anxiety and maybe depression and definitely OCD is that like people aren't um they don't work well under changes, and it's much easier to avoid these changes than tackle them head on because it's a it's looking after yourself, making sure that you're all right. um if I'm gonna throw myself into something, um uh, you know I have to make sure that I have a good back, that I'm ready to go for it if it's something big, because it does take a certain amount of like pushing through, and it's not always easy for anyone, but especially I feel that it's not always easy for me, so I find it kind of exhausting, and but I get through it, and look, I've done the thing that I needed to do now. I'm like I said, I still have that question lingering over me whether I should be pushing for more changes this year, or take a like bit of a breather, like settle down, and then in the new year go again. And but I'll have to, do the driving too, which I'd love to reconsider at this point. I'm so far into it now. It's just funny, I start driving when I don't really need to drive because I live closer. But there you go. But you know, that's it really. I just wanted to come on, have a chat. You'll be pleased to know that there is a guest for next week. Um, so I'm delighted about that too. I'll have the podcast in the house, so it'll just be. I was going to say back to the usual, but it's not really the usual. I've only done like what 2 episodes in the house, 3 episodes, so you're still getting used to that. But we won't have this intensely bright light over my head. And it'll be a joy. But obviously, I want to always thank John for everything he does. My mum and dad, granddad, Jer Calvin. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you would. We're also on Instagram and Facebook, Spotify, Apple, Anchor. There's a couple more. I think Podbean still have our podcast up there. I don't know if anybody uses it though. Um, but obviously, most importantly, thank you all for watching and listening to this episode. I hope the changes that you are, taking on are working out for you, and they are a joyful experience. All right, so I suppose I'll see you next week. Uh, take care of yourselves. Where's the stop button? There it is. Bye.